We are on, and it's the election night special. Good evening,
Bonzo.
Hello. How are you all? Merry Election Eve, by the way. I'm here with my sherry and my mince pies, although the mince pies at the moment, they seem to be teeny weeny doll's house model mince pies. Which I don't think Teddy would like. Well, he'd like them, but he'd like another one because they're too small, really, to be satisfying. They're more like little canapé.
Is that a sign of things to come, though? Austerity is going to be kicking in again. Who knows?
Well, the thing is, are we going to have mince pies at all? This is the thing. So that's why I'm having my sherry and mince pies now, because Lord knows what it'll be like by Christmas. So there we are.
Lord knows. Lord, we had a lord in there. Was there a clue? Was that a hint?
A lord?
A lord
in there?
Yes.
What do you mean?
A lord. Isn't there a Lord Brennan around who could be in the chamber?
Yes. A Lord Brennan, right? There was, I think, Lord Brennan? No, Lord Brennan of where? No.
The Lord Bishop. He'll be there, unfortunately.
Yes. I was trying to think from my former life which one of the sort of people in Ermine that Lord Brennan was. Oh, right, yeah. Sorry.
We'll come to that later, but
we'll come to that, yes. But to the matter at hand, that we're at election eve, and I think there are still some things stirring around. Maybe the odd long tail or whatever, and so we consider. What will happen tomorrow? How will the world be at this time? Tomorrow evening, what sort of keys will we have? So we're going to do the old Mystic Mog bit and go through the lists and give you the runners and riders and see whom Mystic Mog thinks is going to be, your new MHK. Maybe.
Yes, the runners and riders, and what a big field it is. It is worth.
Well, it's bigger than it's bigger than the Grand National. I mean, you only have 40 in the Grand National, and it's 65.
And if you are listening at home, folks, just take a look at the Manx Radio election page. Comprehensive scroll of honour, really, of who has put their heads above the parapet, and they're appearing on a ballot paper in a polling station near you. So please attend. Please use your vote.
Absolutely, and even if you haven't got your polling card, go there. If you're on the register, they will find you, and then they can sort you out with the ballot paper.
Tremendous. Now then, so we're talking about election. We're talking about a 5-year term. Let's just turn the clock back, though, to 5 years ago, where we had the outcome of, say, Bill Shimmons. He was the strongest candidate in Middle. He beat some chap called Howard Quayle, and then one thing led to another. Mr. Quayle was Chief Minister for 5 years, and look what we ended up with.
Yes, indeed. And, well, politics, it's I remember Margaret Thatcher's last words to her cabinet when she was pushed were apparently, "It's a funny old game," in the style of Jimmy Greaves, our late lamented Jimmy Greaves, who is now died a few days ago. Yes, it's a funny old game, and you can end up with the worst of all possible worlds with the best of all possible intentions. And that's one of the things that I think people, when they're going into the polling booths tomorrow, really need to think about. Because the choice that you might think is, oh well, no, they've done a reasonable job. Oh well, they've done all right. Oh no, they're not too extreme. That can end up with everything staying the same and then getting worse and worse and worse.
So
we don't need continuity. We don't need people who've been commissioners. Oh, commissioners are great training for being an MHK. Oh, yes, they need some experience and all that. Yeah, experience in keeping everything the same, not making any valid decisions, in being parochial. to a ludicrous extent, to the extent that even a parish councillor across wouldn't be that parochial. It's just mad that many people seem to think that MHKs are just commissioners with knobs on, and that their focus really should be on pavements and things rather than on the economy and on the place of the island in the wider world. It's a national parliament. It deals with national things. It doesn't deal with bits.
That's quite correct. This is a national responsibilities, and in the last term we had this crazy chain of events where it went to, was it a 12-12 split on Chief Minister? And then Mr. Quayle, he won. It was the sway was in the upper house, wasn't it? That was from memory. And then
yes, it was by mystical, magical process that Quayle managed to be Chief Minister.
And then of course he gets to pick his team of yes men, okay, who've been yes men all along. And
except for the non-yes woman.
Yeah, and of course, there's Mr. Thomas was in the tent, and then he's outside the tent, and we know about
and
that.
Of course, at first there was the other candidate for Chief Minister, Kate Beecroft, who was a no woman, and didn't last very long, and was dismissed in a hospital bed with flowers.
But it would be fair to say that the list of achievements isn't too grand. I know we've got Sky Lantern. We've got Sky Lantern legislation.
The idea of a list. I think the idea of a list of achievements is a bit optimistic.
We are world leaders in Sky Lanterns, though, aren't we? Sky Lantern management. We are world leaders, and the whole administration was like a Sky Lantern, wasn't it? It started off quite pretty to look at, and with seconds, it's up in flames, and it's disappeared, and it's probably set a cornfield on fire. And look where we are now.
Oh yes, absolutely. Up somewhere without propulsion. Yeah.
But would you say, though, just before we get into the various districts, would you say that anyone who was in Comyn this last few years, surely they're on the back foot? Surely that they can't really stand up or be triumphant about anything? Because it's been a total shit show, hasn't it? And they've been unable to criticise, the policies and the outcomes that we can list, promenades and slides and Manx care and all these things. And there's nothing to hang their hat on.
Yes, but you still get them trying to do that. You hear them in these various debates, like Manx Radio or the Studio One things or such. And they'll still, in the roundup, give us a minute, and tell us why you should be elected. And say, my record is, and I've got experience, and I've done this, and I've done that in my ministry. Yes, you've actually screwed it up chronically. But, you're experienced in screwing it up chronically, so that's what matters.
But would you say, though, that it's a weakness that they haven't spoken out? This is it. Matters that are plainly disgraceful and badly managed. So you've got ministers who've been gagged, and I think that is going to sit most difficult with the electorate.
Well, I'm not quite sure whether it's a question of ministers who've been gagged, or for the most part, I think in the Quayle Comyn, it's ministers who have agreed to shut up.
Yeah,
because they're mostly yes men. They are dependent on his patronage for their positions, and we've seen the kind of quality that comes from that with people like Baker and people like Harmer and people like Boot. But more of them later.
So shall we start? Should we head south to Castletown, Arbury and Maloo?
We'll start at the very beginning, which is a very good place to start. That sort of thing.
We've got four candidates.
Yeah. Okay, well, on my list, Graham Crogene, the first one, who's been there for 15 years, I think. I think he's been in for 3 terms, and of course has been famous during this administration for being the Minister for Department of Education, Sport and Culture, and for famously alienating every teacher on the Isle of Man. Indeed, the whole educational establishment, in the state sector of the Isle of Man. And he just kept on doing it and kept digging a great big hole until eventually everything got so bad, and the teachers and the head teachers and everything all going to walk out on strike, that Quayle had to acquiesce and find somewhere else for him, and the position at Home Affairs was vacant due to the sad death of
Bill Malarkey.
Bill Malarkey, yeah, and so he was shuffled over to there, and Allinson thence placed in DESC, where he would then do his master's bidding in a more emollient way than Crugene. Crugene, of course, has now been in Home Affairs with kind of responsibilities for justice. It's sort of an evolving thing. And he hasn't managed to do much damage over there, mainly because I gather he's been run on rails and not even sort of given pointy scissors, but the round ones, by his civil servant.
Where have you gone? Where have you gone to, Bonzo? Let me see. You still there? What's happened? You've been cut off. Maybe.
However, he does have a body of support in Castletown, but I think even that, I think, would see that over the past 5 years he has been spectacularly useless. It would have been more beneficial if he'd been just spectacularly useless, but he's actually been spectacularly harmful. I'm hoping, and I'm not sure he'll be coming back.
Well, he scored 991 votes at the last election and just pipped Phil Gorn by 20 or so. So it could be a narrow squeak because, as you know, the votes can be split, and if there's a lot of loyalty, and perhaps Graham Crugene has been doing some good constituency work, which is remembered, which, we never know what's going on behind the scenes. We may have the highest COVID offence arrest rate in the world, or the most dangerous roads, in Europe, but that doesn't matter when respect to, the department that he's in charge of. But he may be a good constituency MHK, and that could harvest. Well, who knows? Well,
of course, he was very quick to get on the bandwagon of the Elms.
Yeah.
Even though I don't think they were in his... No, hang on. They were just in Arbury, weren't they? Arbury, Castletown and Malone. They were just on the border.
I am aware that in the south, in Castletown, that what can I say? They call it the granny farming. The votes. I think there's a candidate who's quite organised, who's got a team behind him, and perhaps has scored highly using that. But let's have a look at some of the other candidates.
Oh yes, I mean, great, but that's not that's not particular to that constituency. I mean, granny farming is as it's termed, is an old technique. Stephen Crowther, but he almost got in.
Yep.
Last
time.
What was it? I think it was.
He's 40.
I think it was very narrow.
40 behind. Yeah.
40. Yes, 40
behind. And you've heard him? He sounds snappy, quick, confident, accomplished, and he's got a background in commerce. He's a business guy.
Yes, and he's also environmentally orientated. His big thing at the moment is pushing the design for an eco house, which also is relatively inexpensive to construct. So which might be something of a solution to our first-time buyer housing problem, because that the construction costs of the house itself, this eco, which meets all the eco standards, I think it's about £180,000. So it would be possible for government and local authorities to gift parcels of land in their gift, in the same way as they had the kind of self-build things on Birch Hill, I think it was, in Onken, many moons ago, and those things could be built there and then sold in for a price of around say £200,000 or something which could actually, with various state-backed finance schemes, and could actually be affordable for people.
Housing is in the top three, isn't it, of issues? So if he's qualified to comment on that, and he's got expertise, and he can, convince the electorate, which he nearly did last time, he's got to be in with a good show.
Oh, I think he's in with a very good shout. I mean, he has a can-do attitude, and he has a clear thinking, and he's clear thinking and competent.
Yeah, and confident too.
Yeah.
Okay. Our next one in that line is Manx Radio former news editor. What's your take on this about someone making a leap, from that position into politics?
Well, there's name recognition, of course, which is always helpful. And he has covered Tynwald and Manx politics for some time. However, that's a whole different kettle of fish from actually doing it and actually understanding the issues in terms of policy and what you're going to do about them. It's a bit like being, there's lots of football pundits. John Motson, expert football pundit, but could he play on the pitch? Don't know, possibly not. So that's a thing, and also that gives him the ability, having heard so many politicians in the past anyway, and also with media skills, it gives him the ability to say a lot without actually saying anything. He says all the right things, but nothing too radical to frighten the horses. But everything, to give him a nice sort of fluffy feeling of he'll be all right. Yes, we know him. Yes, he'll be all right.
He's well placed in the villages, and his sponsors,
well,
yes,
know,
indeed.
Are very
good.
Yes, his wife is also a commissioner, as I recall.
I think Miles Walker is a sponsor, isn't he? I think.
Oh well, yeah, well, there you go. But I even if it wasn't Miles Walker sponsoring him, I think simple name recognition, and also the fact that he's inoffensive, and sounds like he might do something, and sounds like he might change things, but he, as I say, doesn't say anything to frighten the horses.
Maybe if he came out and said, "Look, I've listened to these clowns for long enough, I could do a better job." Maybe that would be a little.
No, that wouldn't work. But there was a very telling interview which Takeover TV did a bit of a edit and parody on, where Beth Espy, a woman who is very, very talented at cutting food, very, very Jeremy Paxman like.
Yes.
In a nice way. Yes. And what are you going to do about the economy? She asks. Then he comes out with some blather, buzzwords, and well, yes, but that doesn't really say what you're going to do about the economy, does it? So more blather. Yes, but I think people want to hear doesn't have to be in great detail, but just the sort of basic principles about what you would do about the economy. Blather, strange look.
So
vacancy.
Are you predicting that it's going to be a close contest, second place between him and Jason Morehouse? Is that what you're thinking?
Well, there are going to be a lot of very close things this election. I mean, it's going to be recounts, and I think the idea that it's all going to be done and dusted by 11 o'clock in the evening, that I think it's a fantasy. I think it's going to go on sometime in the morning.
Well, tell me, who are you two then for the town?
Well,
Arbery and Malou.
my two there. We didn't quite go on to Jason Morehouse, but very quickly, I mean, Jason Morehouse has been again remarkably ineffective, and the thing that he's most remembered for, I think, at the moment is his war on seagulls.
That was
and that's about it, really. So even though he does have a sort of constituency and fan club from people who he taught at Castle Rushen, their parents and such, he seems to have a bit of a well of support there. As a politician, sorry, mate, don't cut it. It's as simple as. And yes, he'll get a reasonable vote, but I would think that he probably won't get enough. So I think the two that you're looking for there is Mr. Glover and Mr. Crowther. You're going to be the two. Okay. In each case.
Yeah, I can't argue with that. Let's go up north, Aaron Michael, and I know you love this one. I know. No, restrain yourself, please, please.
Lord. Well, no, I'm not going to be. I'm not going to be dreadful or anything. I'm just going to be.
I know what you're going to be doing soon. I know.
I'm just going to be straightforward. Well, Tim Baker. What can we say about Tim Baker? Well,
poison chalice.
No, because he was somebody who assiduously, voted with the Quayle administration as a backbencher and departmental member, and took every opportunity to laud Quayle and his works, so that eventually, after about 3 and a bit years of solid sucking up and sycophancy, he then managed to get infrastructure when Ray Harmer was moved to other things. And he's continued Ray Harmer's relatively chaotic reign at infrastructure, and built on it and made it even more chaotic and more.
Well, nobody is going to argue with that, are they?
No, more chaotic and more reviled, I think, by not only the electorate in Aaron Michael, but also the electorate generally. In Aaron Michael in particular, of course, the buses, part of his responsibility at infrastructure. Again, that's caused a lot of wailing and gnashing of teeth, and also I think the unfortunate thing of the road outside his house being the only road that seems to have been improved in the past couple of years.
But in addition to that, we've got the Douglas Prom, of course, but we've also got the Liverpool landing stage, haven't we? That's under the same department.
Yes.
That's a real monkey. That one.
Yes, that's another part of his thing. And when they're questioned about these things in Timbalton, when they have to face the press about them, it's, oh well, that's the way it is. You'll have to you'll have to get used to it. You shouldn't be criticising my department and my people who are, making the best of a bad situation, and we're always getting criticised, and you people are always in the wrong.
Okay,
well, I'm sorry, we're the ones who are paying for it. So, but Tim Baker, like someone else will come to, I'm afraid does rather prove the idea that a Cambridge education doesn't necessarily guarantee intelligence or competence.
We don't want to be reminded about that all the time, but he did score 1,500 votes, good turnout up north. But let's move along the list. Dr. Sauce.
Oh yes, Dr. Right, okay, this is where. If I get the pronunciation wrong, sorry, I apologise in advance. Sosene Busungu. Is that it? Have I got that?
We'll settle on that.
All right. Well, we'll settle on that. Well, yes, his introductory video was, kind of weird. Suggesting that we somehow send MV Barul round to Shanghai and bombard Shanghai until China give us reparations for COVID. Pretty bonkers. His policies that he's then been putting out at meetings, bit more mainstream, but I can't see him making very much of an impression at all.
An introduction to the political scene. Okay, we've got King Alfred.
Well, all he has to do is turn up, of course, because of the structure of the seat. From the amalgamation of Eyre and Michael. In Michael, there's a very solid base of support, which comes from his father being the MHK for there as well. Really all he has to do is turn up to get in. Eyre and Michael is really only, until Alf Cannon isn't standing anymore, is only ever going to be a one-seat contest.
I'm going to put you on the spot here. Alf voted Chief Minister in 2016. How different would things be?
Not as different as you might think. He still followed. Indeed, there might be a bit worse in some aspects, because he is a supporter of the status quo, and indeed he's a supporter of the status quo plus. He's part of what I would term the welfare state. He wants the Isle of Man to be a place, which is run by wealthy people for wealthy people, and the rest of the population are essentially there to make everything work to the benefit of these people.
Well, we'll never know until next week. So let's have a look at Phil Corkill. Did he appear on your radar at all?
Sort of. Yeah. Yeah, no, sorry. He hasn't really appeared on the radar at all.
Okay, the Farmers Union guy, is it Tim Johnston?
Oh, yes. Timothy Johnston. Yes.
I might have the wrong title there, so correct me if I'm wrong there.
No, I think he is the sort of NFU bod.
Okay.
Like Quayle before him, of course.
Yeah, well placed.
So, well placed. Lot of farming in Eyre and Michael. And, of course, he's pushing farming interests, and then also alongside that, ecological interests and such. So, yes, I can see him garnering a fair amount of support. Whether it's going to be enough, I don't know. But he'll be placed, as it were. He'll be there and there or thereabouts near the finish line.
Okay, next man. Nice guy. Nice guy, Duncan Livingston.
Duncan Livingston. So I still don't. Besides the fact that yes, old policeman knows the area and such, I still don't understand. I still don't quite get what kind of policies he has. He comes out with the usual shopping list, but what's he about? I can't really tell.
Where's he from? What's the background?
Now, Paul Weatherall.
Ooh,
interesting.
Right, yeah, come on then.
Interesting person. Some might say the acceptable face of liberal Vannin, but we'll come on to that in a little while as well. He's actually an old political hand from across. He used to be Liberal Party and then Social Democratic Party, and he actually stood in the '79 election as an MP for the Liberals in Harborough, I think it was. And then in the '83 campaign, ran their campaign in Rugby and Kenilworth, as I recall.
Oh, right. So he's no slouch.
No, he's no slouch, and his manifesto, etc. He's more to the left of liberal Vannin. He has more in common, one would think, with the Green Party, I think. But his economics, I think, are a bit more right of that, and a bit more centrist, should I say? But yeah, he's competent. He knows what he knows the broad broad sweep of policy and understands those issues. So yeah, I think he's somebody who could do a reasonable job.
He'll be picking out the thinkers up north, won't he?
Yeah,
I think so.
He'll also be picking out some of the sort of more independently spirited. I mean, we saw in the local council elections, Derby nationalism very much to the fore, and I think that's an area where he'll certainly pick up some votes. And indeed, the final candidate, I think she might be associated with the Derby nationalists, Madeleine Westall, but she also is an environmentalist and more inclined to the sort of green way of thinking. But I think really she doesn't have enough sort of recognition and impact to really cut through. And I haven't seen her really cut through on the on the hustings debates and such.
Low profile, I think.
Yeah.
Certainly.
So I would say it's a 3-horse race.
Go on.
Between, it's 3 horses for two slots. Between Alf and Paul Wetherell and Timothy Johnston. So it'll be Paul and Johnston and Timothy Johnston who will be competing for the second slot. But but others such as Duncan Livingston, etc., they'll not be too far behind. No. I say it's going to be quite bunched.
I think it'll be good experience for a lot of the other candidates there. So we'll go to Douglas Central, and this is the one I'm covering tomorrow with Jeff TV. I'm in the counting hall, so I'll be watching.
Oh, you're in the counting hall. Yes, I've seen.
I'll be watching this one from the inside.
Yeah, I've seen some of the sofa for the actual main GEF things where they're doing their rehearsal, and Sam Turton's. Yep, he's got that lounging on the sofa. Yeah.
And a big shout out to Sam and the team there, because the material they've put together, really good.
Yes. It looks like it's going to be a very, very
independent news. That's what we want. So
I think it's going to be a very, very interesting program. So people who want to watch things rather than Manx Radio, because you can only listen to Manx Radio after all. Tune in on your interweb to GEF and, of course, to GED, who be at Douglas Central, as we were saying.
There we go.
Which is a 4-candidate race, folks.
Damien Giapelli.
Yes.
What's your take on that?
Well, part of the Giapellis, as in Enzo Giapelli, Giapelli's restaurant, Enzo's restaurant, etc. Part of the legal establishment. Although I think he did go to Ballacamine for some of the time. I think he went to King Bill's for the 6th form. He looks like a backbench Tory MP. He sounds like a backbench Tory MP. He acts like a backbench Tory MP. And I think sometimes he actually thinks like a backbench Tory MP, albeit a more sort of to the wetter wing, the more lefty wing of the Conservative Party.
But it's the ability to scrutineer, isn't it? That's a good thing, isn't it? Surely.
Yes, he can scrutinise, and yes, some of his thinking on policies, especially about the organisation of government and the issues with the civil service. Yes, those are good. But I can't help thinking that in his heart of hearts, of course, he's going to be another advocate of the status quo plus. Yes, we must maintain the welfare state, low taxes for the rich. So I'm in two minds about him, really. But he will run and call it close, or maybe not so close, because Anne Corlett, of course, has not been very visible over the past 5 years at all. Has she not?
Well, funnily enough, when she speaks, it's actually not that bad, is it? She's quite lucid. in the chamber, and you wonder why she's been so quiet.
Well, don't know. I think she's another one of these political dynasty types because she was previously in the Corpy, and I think was it her uncle? I think was mayor, and another one was an MHK and stuff. So there's a bit of that kind of I think assumption that I will get in.
Yeah.
And whether she's done enough or not is another matter.
Yeah.
Now, Sarah Hackman, who was a Douglas councillor apparently for 6 years, well, I think we can see why things might not be brilliant have been brilliant in the Corpy, if that's the quality of councillor that you have.
Well, she stood before. She had a crack at the title in 16 and polled 342 votes.
Well, but there's no accounting. But to my mind, in my humble opinion, she simply has not displayed any real understanding of the issues, the issues that face the island.
Yeah.
Nationally, she's very much a councillor, very much concerned with pavements and such.
Well,
but yes, pavements and things have their place, and they have their place for a constituency member. But again, this is a national election. It's not a councillor election.
Well, Chris Thomas will be pulling in 1,800 votes, so I don't think we need to go too much into that, do we?
No, I don't. No, I don't think we need to go too much into Chris Thomas at all. I think Chris Thomas has demonstrated his competence and his independence. He's a very good mind, and he's someone who has actually worked out a strategy. I mean, people might complain his manifesto is very, very big and very, very long. Well, it's more like a program for government. So, he actually has an oven-ready program for government ready to go.
He's got solutions, hasn't he?
Yeah.
So I think are we agreeing on Damien and Chris?
Yes, I think that's a pretty safe.
Should we head eastwards over the east side in the capital? Where we've got the magnificent Seven.
Douglas East.
It's a war zone, isn't it?
Oh, it usually is, yes. And last time, I think there were 9 candidates last time, so it's slightly lower this time, but it still is this complete smorgasbord of candidates. Now, Claire Barber, well, yeah, she's done enough to get in.
Yeah.
No, I don't think we really have to discuss very much about that. She's done enough to get in. That's it. She has some experience. She has a good understanding of health issues and stuff, and I think that's somewhere where in the next administration really she ought to go to DHSC.
I think you know what you're going to get as well.
Not perhaps so much on other issues.
Yeah, I think you know what you're going to get though, isn't she? She is fair. She's fair, isn't she? I like the way she's balanced in what she says in the chamber.
Yes, she's a known quantity, and I think she's demonstrated enough to get back. So it's who else gets in now? Joni Farrago. Well, yes, a very very astute young woman, very knowledgeable on all the sort of areas of policy, and a Dougie Butty as well, even though she lives in Laxey now. So she knows the constituency, so she knows the local issues, and of course as leader of the Manx Labour Party, she has a much more world view, much more strategic view of things, and she's not backward in coming forward. She is not afraid to speak her mind, and even though she does it quietly, perhaps not not stridently, not forcefully, but when she says something, people listen. And when somebody like Chris, gosh, I must admit my jaw dropped when I heard him saying this, but Chris Robertshaw saying, Jamie Farragher has got something. I look forward to seeing her in the chamber. She's somebody who can make a real contribution.
And would you say it's fair that the electorate will have a good idea what they're going to get, with a vote that way?
Yes. So many times with candidates, even candidates who stand under a political flag, Liberal Vannin, of course, is the political flag I'm referring to here. But with the Manx Labour Party have a defined manifesto. People are going to obviously abide by that manifesto. They have certain variations in their own local constituency manifestos. Yeah, but they will stick to that bit, to the main plank, with their other pieces added on. So what you're going to get, rather than, I'm standing as an independent, and if you look in my manifesto, I like unicorns and rainbows and puppy dogs and mom and bonag and folk dancing, and then when you ask them about something 12 months later, yes, well, I'm not quite sure about unicorns anymore, but puppy dogs I'm still okay with. The independent tag, which is usually code for some kind of conservative, yes, it's just meaningless.
Peter Gilmore, what's the story?
Yeah, what's the story? Old Air Force bod, Manxie, came back, I don't know, anything about sort of 15 years ago or something like that. He's an IT bod, and he does some IT in e-gaming, I think.
Is he coming up with any ideas?
Well,
solutions?
He has a couple of ideas about the civil service. One particular, I think, about the civil service that I think he doesn't quite understand what the civil service is for. It's not quite about how it works. It's about what it's there to do. And I think he's another one of these people who does push the idea of the IT magic bullet, which is a fallacy that goes back half a century or more, that somehow we can have more efficiencies with fewer people by getting in a nice IT system, and all we have to do is press the buttons, and we don't have to pay them pensions, and we don't have to let them have lunch breaks or anything like that. And then they find out that the system itself needs people to operate it and fettle it, and keep it going and define the things that it's going to do, and you end up with more people spending more money on something more complex, because they also tend not to define what the system should do properly. Everyone piles in with their own idea of, yes, it should do that as well, it should do that as well. And that is the story of government systems, not only local government systems or indeed small national government systems like this, but ones in the UK. I mean, in the UK now, they're finding that after 30 years that the Fujitsu ICL system that runs all the pension contributions, and things and national insurance, that some of the basic programming has been wrong. And so all the calculations are out. It's going to be an absolute mess.
I was listening to something about that today. Anyway, is he connecting with the voters? I'm not sure. I don't
think so.
Our next one is Michael Josem.
Oh yes, yes, Australian by birth, Manx by choice, something else, God knows how. Where is he coming from? Who is Michael Josem? Which I think is a good point, because Michael Josem, some people may or may not know. Before he came to the island, he worked as a political operator in the Australian Parliament in Canberra. Excuse me, I've got a bit of a thing in my throat. He was a political officer for a couple of the members of Parliament there from the Australian Liberal Party, who are, well, not that liberal. No, think right-wing Conservative. That's what the Australian Liberal Party are. He then, I think, when he came to Europe and then came to here to work, I think he was leader of the Australian Liberal Party, overseas in Britain.
He's certainly got a good handle on communications, hasn't he?
He is by no means, Joe Bloke who's just walked off the street and decided to become an MHK. There are issues
and
with
he only missed out. He only missed out in the by-election.
He only missed out, but that was firstly that was a low turnout, and secondly he was doing what somebody with his background and knowledge of doing these things would do, in that he was using dog whistle issues. Lock various people up in Jerby and throw away the key, that sort of thing. Not really anything broad.
But has a quite a following, very active digitally, and I mean, I'm just coming up to the next candidate who has previously served in the House of Keys. That's John Jockin. I think he's a former postman, isn't he? So he's going to be
he's
well
former
known.
postman. Yes, former postman, former MHK, Corpy type. Old school, old thinking. I'm afraid. If you want somebody to fight the war before last, he might be your man. But with the problems that we face nowadays, I just don't think he has the mindset for it.
A national politician, we don't know. So our next one on the line, Christine Urquhart.
Yes, well, Christine Urquhart has been very much in the public consciousness for the past 18 months, I think, or so, about sex offences, violence against women, and obviously that's one plank of her policies. But she does seem to have a passable grasp of most of the sweep of what needs to be considered and what needs to be done. And she would be somebody who would kind of take things on in Tynwald. Whether she'd fall foul of the Speaker and Mr. President, I don't know. I think she might do. She might find herself going out the door. But so maybe someone who. Maybe someone who could, or in the future, but perhaps not this time.
But possibly benefit from having a bigger team around her, and maybe the same with Amanda Walker, who features.
Well, Amanda Walker has been. How many times has she stood for this seat now? God, I think at least 3. I mean, she, yes, she has a degree in political science. From my alma mater, Warwick, and yes, she has a background in education.
Yeah, 373 votes. But I'm looking at the numbers. Claire Betterson had 561. And then everything's split 400.
Yes, it was hopelessly split. Yeah.
So anything could happen. In fact, I'm going to pin you down now. I'm going to pin you down.
Think so. I think here, it's much more predictable. I think that there will be, a large chunk going to 2, and then I think there'll be, everyone else. The rest of them can divvy it up between themselves.
Okay.
So I think that will be Claire Barber and Joni Farrier.
Okay, let's scroll down the page to Douglas North, of which there is the Gang of 4. This is an interesting one.
Right. Well, our beloved health minister, David Ashford, our beloved health minister and noted user of shredders. he does have a large base of support. I think that's sort of, Governor's Hill there, and of course, I think his sister lives there as well. So that sort of garners enough. I mean, people will, I think, now be less enamoured of him than they might have been at the height of COVID, say. I think people have seen now that was a bit of a sort of paper tiger thing, and the marvelous job that he and Howard were supposed to have done is not quite as marvelous as they've punted it. So I think he'll get back, reduced majority, of course, but I think he'll get back because, of course, the choice is just so limited.
Well, I think the public will forget Shreddergate. They'll forget Flip Flop Saturday and other things. David Ashford is a very strong constituency, MHK, and he's a great communicator, and he still, keeps a close eye on matters relating to Douglas Corpy as well. So,
well, yes, I mean he's David Ashford strikes me as, and indeed has from day one, strikes me as somebody who's a councillor, not a national politician.
Well, moving on, I think I'm seeing Kevin Oliphant Smith, who's got quite a striking placard picture. I'm thinking it's like Rick Astley.
Yes, well, I mean he's stood before as well, hasn't he?
He's never given up.
Right. No, no, indeed. But I think again he's going to have to not give up another time. I simply think there aren't the votes for him there to do it. Not that he's made any great impression anyway.
But what I would say is that when you look at his manifesto, it's copied right across the island, isn't it? Very not copied, but it's the same themes, isn't it? That generic.
Well, it isn't that he copying the same things which are generic.
Well, no. What I'm saying is that a lot of candidates on the island, they're quite limited as to what they can pitch for, should we say? I think without being in a political party, I think that's difficult. But I missed him online actually. Was he absent for one of the debates?
I think he was. Yes. Oh yes, that's right. I think he might have had COVID actually.
Don't know. Okay. Well,
I think he might. But no, I don't think that's going to happen. Ralph Peake. Ralph Peake, of course, he has been the head of the climate change transformation team, and very much jumped on the climate change bandwagon. But whenever you hear him or indeed media interviews or stuff, he just speaks in this sort of stream of consciousness where he's found various political words and somehow jumbles them together in some sort of invisible cloud, and then they emanate from him. But he doesn't seem to understand what they are at all.
Doesn't quite light up the room.
No, not at all. And also, of course, that there are various things which he's had to do with as a departmental member of Treasury, where I think the responsibilities of benefits, etc. And I think he was part of the people behind the cuts in EPA. So I think there are some people who are going to remember that. So coupled with that and his general non-ability, when you are then faced with comparing him with John Warrenborough, well, I mean, John Warrenborough has been, I think, a big surprise of this election. There are a couple of things of his that I really don't agree with, but he looks the part. Yeah. He talks that he walks the walk and he talks the talk. He No, he's got a clear idea of what he wants to do. He's got a clear idea of how to go about it. I think he's going to be a very interesting MHK.
I think you're picking Ashford and Wanamba, aren't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we'll go for that. Okay, let's move to Douglas South. Another foursome.
Right. Well, first off, Claire Christian, who of course, came in the by-election, and she did quite well, comparatively speaking, in the by-election, because she got I think something like about 50% of the vote in the by-election, which, even though that's only sort of 20% of the electorate, because of the turnout in the by-election, still a good number on which to build. And she's shown herself in her time in the Keys. She's shown herself to know her stuff, and be someone who is quite prepared to stand their ground. She's a formidable woman, and
she puts a lot of preparation into her submissions. From what I could gather when we were all listening to Tumbled, on the run up this year, there were some good submissions.
Oh yes. I think she's found somebody to school her in the how to do it at that, because one of the first things that struck me about her when she was in the Keys was, is she reading a brief from from a civil servant who knows what they do? Because it sounds like the kind of stuff I used to write. And somebody's taught her how to do that. But again, this proves that it's somebody who is thorough and will find out how to do things and then go and do them. So, yeah, I think this is somebody that the Keys and Comyn, I think, really needs. I can see her in Enterprise, and Enterprise needs somebody like her, because it's a department that's pretty dysfunctional and needs to be taken by the scruff of the neck. And she's the person to do it, in my view.
Well, what's Gerard Higgins going to say?
Tax, I suppose. I used to be in the Treasury, and I used to do tax policy. That's probably what he'd say. He does have some ideas about some other things, but I think he's, even though he believes or puts forward the idea that he's going to be the solution to the problem, I think he's been too much of a part of a problem to be the solution, to be honest.
I'm not really seeing any magic.
No.
There, but we'll see. But there is some magic.
He's a tax. Let's put it simply. He's a tax inspector, standing for Parliament. So he's going to sound like a tax inspector.
Yeah.
Standing for.
Yeah. And this is it. The prospective politicians have got to have a lot of characteristics and connecting with the public. I'll say, we've got Sarah Maltby, who is ideal, for.
Sarah Maltby, yes, indeed, ideal with the public. Not perhaps the best natural media performer, but she very much knows her business, and she knows how to work the doorsteps. Growing up with David Cretney as her father, I'm sure it would come in as osmosis anyway, going around campaigning. Well, but she certainly knows about how to relate to people, and her background in education, which I think is educational special needs, I think is her background. Yeah, that really gives her an insight into a great variety of problems,
and possibly a good combination with Claire Christian, unless Paul Quine can find his way maybe back into the House.
Yes, well, I think one of the reasons why Paul Quine got in was because Sarah Maltby wasn't standing. Because in the by-election, Manx Labour didn't field a candidate, I think that was because there were some problems with people's availability. I think if there had been a Manx Labour candidate in that by-election, they probably would have been the second to Claire Christian, and not Paul Quine. I think particularly in Pulrose, I don't think the turnout was very, very high at all. That's been a traditionally sort of high turnout area for Manx Labour.
So what you're saying is Claire and Sarah for Douglas South?
I'm saying Claire and Sarah, yeah.
Let's head out east to Garth. Is the clue in the name? But we'll start with Daphne.
Yeah. Well, yes, she's done enough.
Yeah.
Again, she's proved herself to be a sort of competent and doughty performer. Not afraid to take on Comyn. Not afraid to stand her ground. Very, very intelligent, very considered. Has a good understanding of the broad scope of policy, and I think she'd be very well suited in education, for example, as a minister.
Well placed. Well, her partner during the last session was Martin Perkins, but I'm not feeling it.
No, not at all. I don't think he came out of the Laxey floods too well, and his
OFT was.
Well, yeah, I mean, certainly his time as the chairman of OFT has been the definition of disaster. He doesn't have any real impact at all, and he doesn't really seem to have any grasp at all.
Tell me, Andrew Smith. What's his story?
Good question. Well presented. Isn't he one of the commissioners?
I'm not sure. Let's see. Has he featured? Has he had a crack at the title before? Let me see.
I think he may. Yes, I think he may have.
So he polled 1,247 votes and was only 23 behind Daphne. And Martin Perkins scooped it with 1,700. So
no, I don't think. But I don't think it's going to play out like that. And he's been. I think he's the one who's been pushing stuff out on a Facebook page, Garth Matters, instead of Andrew Smith. It's Garth Matters, and Garth Matters is strangely enough all about Andrew Smith and about how wonderful he is. I think there's a certain amount of entitlement there, and if there's one thing that does tend to put the electorate off, it's the scent of entitlement.
And I think Facebook is playing less of a part in votes myself. But anyway, Jamie Smith, I think he's a Laxey commissioner, is he?
Yes, I think he's another.
Not quite sure.
Laxey commissioner. Yes, he is. Sort of youngish chap, glasses, and yeah. But again, I think too parochial. Doesn't really. Very much yes, it's all about the Laxey and etc. But not about anything sort of broadly national, or it's all about, with them, it's all about sewage, and it's all about flooding.
Is it all about Gareth Young?
Well, Gareth Young, of course, a teacher at St Ninians, and the third of the three Manx Labour Party candidates standing in this year's election. Again, somebody who understands the broad sweep of things, has an idea of what they want to do, is very good at media, very good at coming across. Well, he's a teacher, so he's used to standing on his hind legs and trying to control an audience. So if you've got an audience which will actually listen, you're away. I can see him coming through. Again, it'll be a tight squeeze, but I can see him getting in.
Would it be fair to say that a lot of people who are going to be voting tomorrow, they're going to have an appetite for change. So the likes of, say, giving Daphne a stronger voice in government, and then like other characters right across the board who are hoping to be elected, people might actually say, we need some young blood in here. We need some young faces, not old men in grey suits. I'm just wondering whether that's going to creep in.
Well, I think that's spot on. The mood that I hear everywhere, and I'm not quite sure what you hear, but the mood I hear everywhere is, no, it can't go on. We can't keep on like this. A Tynwald that's pale, male, stale, keeps thinking the same, says it's going to change, but just keeps on keeping on. No. We need a more diverse Keys, more diverse Tynwald. Certainly, a more gender balanced Tynwald. So I think we are going to finally see from this election, we are going to see reasonably half of the MHKs actually being female.
So you're looking at Daphne, and who's your second spot?
And Gareth.
Okay, we'll go to my favourite. One of my favourites.
Oh yeah,
Glenn Faber and Peel. I love this place. There's been some humour in Peel. I've seen the Dumb and Dumber placards. I don't know whether they all disappeared, but anyway, we'll move on. Starting, it's the incumbent minister, Geoffrey Boot. Do you need to spend too long on this? Is it?
No. I'm not going to spend too long on this because my blood pressure would go up. Suffice to say, his tenure at DEFA has been, at best, appalling. Time and time again, he's been proved to be not in full command of the facts, and in sometimes misrepresenting the facts.
Be careful what you say now, Bonzo. He's got a bit of wealth behind him, so I think it's whether.
Yeah. No, people can misrepresent the facts. Yes, but that doesn't imply any intentionality.
Well, I think it's whether he connects with the public at this present time. And
yes, anyone who goes to your doorbell.
That was true.
Yes, I think that proves how he isn't connecting with the public.
Yeah.
So I think he's toast, and not even toast. Really black carbonated toast.
It's soda bread. Overdone. No, but the thing is, he's you can't even get to Ireland, can you? There's no airline.
It's a good job he has his own aircraft, so he can troll back to being a Tory councillor.
Yeah. Could he be bottom of the pile completely? Could that happen?
I think that's possible.
Could be. Okay.
I think that's entirely possible.
Let's have a look at our next man. Trevor Cowan.
Letter writer extraordinaire and petition of dolence submitter extraordinaire, isn't he? How many? He will have a certain constituency, I think, which will vote for him, but I don't think it'll be enough.
Maybe it's another statement. Our next man, he's been there before. He's been in MLC. He's decided to have another crack at the title. It's Tim Kruger. What's all that about? Why would you want to come back?
Well, because he sees an opportunity, I suppose. If you've been in MLC, then you can be an then you can be an MHK, can't you?
I do quite like some of his posts because it sounds like he's mighty pissed off with some of the actions of the government, and you think, why couldn't you be so vocal the first time around?
Oh yes, well that was because he was part of the government. There are issues of collective responsibility, of course, but also it may have been that, of course, it paid him politically, really, to not rock the boat. Because, of course, in the system that we have, chief minister appoints things, so people who rock the boat tend not to progress.
Yes, don't rock the boat.
No. So, he has a lot of recognition, and having been an MHK for the predecessor seat, yes, I can see he'd have a very good prospect.
And of course, we could have a big split on the vote, but we've got Leo Cousins from our Green Party. I fancy him. I fancy he's going to pull some votes.
Yes, actually, he's been nursing the seat for a fair while before he actually sort of declared for it. I think yes, he seems to have been getting some traction, and also the fact that I think some of the demographic of Peel has changed over the past 5 years. That you do have more younger people, more of the kind of higher education, educated, artistic, sort of more bohemian, if you will.
I've got a theory, Bonzo. Honestly, for tomorrow, is that people, they're going to have maybe one candidate that they've got an eye on, but anything that's got a Green Party label, folk are just going to say, life is pretty shit at the moment, isn't it? We get it so wrong on every front on the green agenda on the island. I'll just vote for the Green Party. It's almost like I'm going to go to the bottle bank. I'm going to recycle. I might as well vote for the Green Party. I'll have one vote for someone, and then the Green Party will just pick up the other one. That's my little prediction tomorrow.
So it may very well be that Leo Cousins might give us all the surprise. We shall see. But yes, you're right in that is a
could happen.
That's not beyond the bounds of possibility.
Okay,
Ray Harmer.
Let's have a look at Ray.
Well, again, there is a constituency for him, and he is relatively inoffensive and likable. But as his time in infrastructure has shown, in his time in policy reform, he hasn't really done anything anyway, because there wasn't so much for him to do. At that time, what with COVID, etc. So he hasn't really been operating on that.
And I think with the beach problem as well, I think that will be.
Yes, beach. Yeah, beach and
silt.
And the silt.
Yes.
What do they call it? The pollution that they've removed and they've had to take to the to another dump. Yeah, that's another issue. So I think he'll probably go the way of Boot.
He'll be washed out with the dirty water.
Albeit not so spectacularly. He'll get a decent vote, but I don't think he'll be getting back in.
Okay.
Michael Lee.
Michael Lee. What's that about?
Yeah. Who he? Yeah. Precisely. Who is he? I don't know. And that leaves us with Kate Lord Brennan, of course.
Who will top the poll?
Who will probably top the poll?
She'll top the poll.
I don't think we need to say any more than that.
No, absolutely wonderful human being. Love to listen to.
So my thought is that her and
well, go on then.
Her and Kruger. But as you say,
I think Leo. I'm thinking Leo.
Give us a bit of a shock. Yeah.
I'm thinking bottle bank and recycling. Everyone likes to do the bit, and the bit is going to be we're going to put a cross in Leo Cousins' box. So let's go. This is the best constituency of all.
Right. Well, serial Keys candidate David Fowler. I'm not quite sure how many times he's stood now. But of course he stood at the Douglas South by-election, and I think he stood in Douglas East in the 2016, and I don't know where he stood before that. David Fowler is the kind of Manx equivalent of the Natural Law Party. If you remember the Natural Law Party.
Oh, yeah, they've come
for those watching who don't. The Natural Law Party were a very strange political party of the 80s and 90s in the UK, and they were bankrolled by some very wealthy aristocrat whose big house they lived in, and they were a sort of 1980s version of a 1960s hippie commune, and they thought that all the political problems of the United Kingdom could be solved by compulsory meditation in schools, voluntary meditation, mass meditation periods of the population every so often, and yogic flying.
Oh yes,
where you fold your legs in a sort of yogic position and somehow levitate and fly around.
I've tried that.
And that's kind of David Fowler, really.
In fact, if David, if you're watching, please, we'd love to do a bit of a chat post-election, wherever you end up. But the next guy is the man.
Oh, I mean, Kieran Hannafin.
The man.
Yes, he's been. There's
Fantastic.
been nothing like him in Manx politics ever. Someone who actually had a sort of conventional career beginning. I think he was in life assurance at one point, but now is a graphic designer and professional musician. And his band were playing in the UK and at festivals, and had some offers, I think, of European festivals and stuff. And then COVID hit. So that's kind of been suspended for a while, and he's been doing graphic design and such. But seeing how everything has been going, he just thought to himself, "Stuff this! I can do a better job than this. I'm going to stand." And he's done his homework. He's really done his research, so he understands what it is that he wants to do, and he understands how he's going to do it, and he's also excellent at communicating that, both in the media and personally with
the rhetoric.
With people on the doorstep. Yeah,
the rhetoric is it's so refreshing.
He's genuine. He's the real deal. A sort of extraordinary outsider candidate who's just
love it. So
appeared a marvelous, well, not so much a breath of fresh air as a hurricane of it. So he's somebody who needs to be in the Keys, and I think even Chris Robertshaw again looked at him and was saying that he's different and he has something to offer.
Alison Lynch.
Yeah, wasn't she a commissioner?
I think so.
No, she's commissioner. She has a business background, but
she came over okay. I did hear her. Yeah.
Came over okay, but no. There's something there that needs to be there.
Now, we're back in the world of radio, and there's no doubt about it. He's going to capture some votes.
Yes, he is. Our own pound shop pugilist Farage wannabe. Yes. He knows how to press buttons. He knows how to go for button issues, make himself look different, make himself look all the kind of classic Trump Farage plays. But when it comes down to it, he doesn't really understand that much about the general sweep policy at all. But he understands how to look to a section of voters as the man with common sense, man who wants to stop this woke nonsense. The idea that anything you say will offend somebody. Well, we can't have that. And these people who want a war against the motorist, and the most oppressed minority on the Isle of Man are the English. All sorts of, just really, basic sort of red top tabloid way of going about it. But yes, he knows how to get attention. He knows how to get votes from a certain demographic of the electorate, but he doesn't actually understand how things work at all.
But if you're going to tell people, you're going to drain the swamp.
He will drain the swamp. He will just stand up in Tynwald and coming out with these stock phrases, but he won't do anything. Indeed, many of his some of his ideas verge on the dangerous, in my opinion. So I thought, yes, he will get a fair amount of votes. Please, dear God, he doesn't get enough, in my view, because that would be a very bad day for Manx politics if he did.
I think the Manx people know now that we need a government that will pull together and make things happen. Yeah. And I think our next candidate, Jane Poole Wilson, could be the right person to be at the centre of that.
Oh, yes, very much so. Of course, previously an MLC, or actually still currently an MLC, but she's only got another year to go. She's been instrumental in a lot of the passage of legislation in this Keys, and she's also, of course, just recently completed a report on reform of the Manx legal system, and I think that's her reason for wanting to actually be in the Keys, because you have to have that kind of electoral mandate, popular electoral mandate, in order to drive those reforms through. You can't really do it as a member of the unelected upper chamber, or the not popularly elected upper chamber. So I would see her getting in to do that, and either, as a minister to do that, she'd be at Department of Home Affairs, which also is Department of Home Affairs and Justice. But she has a very good understanding of, again, all of the broad sweep of policy and what needs to be done. And she is the kind of person who is a collegiate leader. She's not a sort of narcissistic, egotistical, some might say bully, person who just wants to dominate and everyone to agree with them. That's not where she's coming from. She operates like a lawyer, and that she takes information from other people, considers it, synthesizes it, and then comes with a reasoned judgment on what to do.
So who's your prediction?
Right, well, Jane, and it's going to be close, but Kieran.
I'll throw this one a little bit further. I think Jane will be elected tomorrow, and I think she'll be in the frame for the top job. Oh
yes, I think that's undoubted. I think we'll be coming to that in a while.
So. But let's go to Onken then, where the street lights are never on bright enough. You can never see the road signs. But who we're going to see?
Straight out of Onken, the youth is getting angry in Onken, isn't there? In it. Yeah.
The drive-bys have stopped, haven't they? They've stopped.
Yeah, they're a big problem with the youth, innit?
Yeah. Where are you, David?
In Onken. Yeah.
Now then.
We got some. Rob Callister. Yeah, competent enough. Obviously has been in DFE near all the all tourism and racing stuff. So part of the Vision 9 controversy, if I remember rightly.
Not sure. Be careful on that. Be careful on that.
Well, that was part of his remit, and also other various things. But competent enough. But again, not somebody who's made a great impression on me. The voters of Oncombe might think differently. I think there's also the thing that he's a, he's a good sort of constituency MHK, and he's a known quantity.
James Cherry.
Oh yes, this is the bloke who goes around buying endorsement messages, isn't it?
Oh yes, Burko, wasn't it?
Yes.
Peculiar, wasn't it?
The former speaker of the UK House of Commons.
Order. Yeah, that's him.
Order. Sent this purchased message. I can't remember what the website is called, but it's the one that you buy.
It's called
Cameo.
It's called campainkiller.com.
Yes, it's called campainkiller.com. Yeah.
Should we move on to June?
Again? I don't see that happening. No.
Julie Edge.
Julie Edge knows her stuff. Bit abrasive for some people, but known quantity.
Yeah.
Knows what's going on.
I'm writing a name down now, but Michael Leather, fascinating to listen to.
Yes, in a strange sort of way. No, his campaign is mostly about building, filling in Douglas Bay and building in some kind of Bahrain in it and selling it off for large amounts of money. Forgetting, of course, that isn't in Oncombe.
Yeah. I can't see it.
No.
I can't see it. But Peter Willers.
Yes. Well, Peter Willers, a very able person.
Is he a hand grenade? Is it like tossing a hand grenade into the chamber, voting for him?
More like tossing a nuke into the chamber. This is a man who, on various interviews, has said he wanted to cull the civil service. Not just make cuts, just cull them. I think essentially the thrusts of his campaign. And there was another thing as well where he was asked, who would you like to see as chief minister? Well, me. Yeah, I should be chief minister. Much better than anybody else. So no, he is just too hostile. There are also problems with his associations with Goober.
Yes. And reports and things.
Yeah. So, but I think just generally in the how voter friendly is this candidate? On a score of 1 to 10, I'd say about -5. So
we're saying status quo.
Status quo. Yeah.
Gotcha. Right, we're heading up to Sonny Ramsey, and it's an 8-ball.
Oof. Yeah. Right, well, Mr. Allinson, who is now in the Department of Education, it seems to have become Howard's new best friend rather than David. I think because he thinks that Allinson will be the new CM and might be kindly disposed to him in the honours list. Yes, he's educated. Yes, he kind of knows his onions. But he also has a slightly diffident air as a politician, and again a certain degree of entitlement. I think he UK public school. I think it was Uppingham. Was it Latimer? And then Cambridge, where he studied medicine. Um, so yeah, I think he's started recently to really put people off, and there were the issues with school closures during COVID, or during the later bouts of COVID, which he had some problems with.
Do you think it's more localised, isn't it, with Ramsey? We've got an 8-vote split.
Yes,
and it
but
could be down to...
there is also the M word, of course, which you're going to talk about. Now, I think Allinson is very much in favour of the Marina, which is not a good look in Ramsey at the moment. So, I mean, like Robert Cowell as well, who is in favour of the Marina, maybe not as proposed just at the moment, but still he's sort of part of that kind of establishment view on it, which of course most people in Ramsey don't share. Laurie Hooper, I think he's against it, and Laurie Hooper of course has done his time and performed reasonably, and indeed he was essentially acting Minister for Home Affairs whilst Bill Malarkey was ill, and then after his demise. But there seems to be an opinion that I'm hearing about forming in Ramsey that he thinks he's comfortable there, and that he thinks a lot of himself, and that's an opinion that some people are not inclined to share. So I think he's as capable of alienating people as he is of encouraging their vote. So, even though he's got a good crack at getting back in, I wouldn't feel so sure.
The Doctor had nearly 3,000 votes. Laurie had 1,400. Singer was next at 886.
Yeah.
5 years ago.
Yes, and of course Singer has returned to the batting order.
Yes.
Again on a anti-Marina ticket.
Yeah. Okay. What about? Let's just stick to the order. Jonathan Kinraid. I've not really kept an eye on this one.
Now Jonathan Kinraid, from what I've seen of him, is a candidate who knows his onions. Comes across well. Again, seems to understand what needs to be done and how to do it. And from what I gather, a lot of a fair amount of people in Ramsey actually agree with that idea. So I think he's got a chance.
Okay, Simon Mann.
Well, it's competent enough bloke. Understands things, but male and stale, I'm afraid. I can't see how he connects with the voters.
The next guy, Luke Parker.
No, again, I don't quite sort of get where he's coming from politically, but he has quite a lot of recognition, I think, in Ramsey, and a younger, fresher face. I think that again, that's started to get those people who haven't voted out thinking about getting out to vote, and also having some people switch their allegiances a bit to somebody who they think is going to be more active and more determined, and not one who's going to just keep the status quo going, or a variant of it.
Erica Spencer, just at the end there. I've not heard of.
Yeah, well, she's she's an ecologist, and quite on the green issues and such. And of course, is an opponent of the Marina.
Yeah.
But I don't think she's got the cut through for it.
Okay.
It's too. She might have if there were fewer candidates, but it's too large field. No, I don't know. I think she's. I don't think that's going to.
I see Ramsey as a potential for surprise. I think the Marina is going to make it. It could be sink or swim for the two incumbents. I think we could see a surprise in Ramsay. I think we could lose one of them.
I think the surprise in Ramsay is that you'll lose both of them.
Go on. Who's getting in then?
Well, I think it'd be Kinraid and Parker.
Okay. And finally, we're down south. We're in Russian, and we have 4. It's one. It's got to be June back in.
Well, yes. Yes. Again, it's one of these seats where it's a one-horse contest because the other stable has been filled. Yes, June will get in, probably with a reduced vote, because again, it's or should I say, it's a question of him going for the job that he didn't quite say he wanted because he wanted to be president of Tynwald. No, I didn't get that. It's the other bloke who used to be your MHK who's got it. Well, I'll just have to come back and try and be an MHK again now. So there'll be a certain amount of, just coming to stand, and get my vote because you didn't get in for what you wanted, kind of thing. So there'll be that kind of resistance. But he has enough of a constituency down here to get by, so he'll get in, reduced, and get in. So it's a question of who gets in from the other 3. Michelle Haywood, no, should I say Dr. Michelle Haywood, Doctor of Genetics, if I remember right, from Imperial College London. She runs the dive shop, of course, and is the chair of Portsmouth Area Commissioners. Now, I don't think she's painted herself in glory at Portsmouth Area Commissioners. I think especially with the Manxonia House issue. That hasn't gone down, I think, well. And although she's done various things, like she was at the forefront at the start of COVID of sorting out high pressure masks. Yes, from the diving equipment that she had, and then somebody 3D printed the necessary butterfly valves. So she was at the forefront of that. But even though she's done that, I think there's a certain amount of, I was forgetting, of course, she stood as an MLC and did not get in as an MLC. So I think there'll be a certain amount of, yes, you might think you should be in Tynwald.
Some baggage.
There's a certain air of entitlement again to it, which is the kind of thing that, as I've said, does put voters off. So I don't know.
Okay.
Now Kemp, he of course almost got in last time, but I think this time people have looked at him again, and he's offering a lot of the kind of same things that he was talking about in 2016. And again, I think people have the idea that, he thinks he ought to be. I mean, he thinks he ought to be there, and he can't understand why we haven't voted him in. Certain amount of entitlement, certain amount of vote, and he also seems to have, I think, something of an issue from his past career with the Department of Education. I don't think he's a great friend of theirs. So I fear if he were in the Keys, he would spend rather too much of his time pursuing perhaps personal vendetta against the Department of Education rather than actually focusing on the job at hand. So no.
But the mantra was convincing. It is convincing. It's like we've alluded to with previous candidates that he can, push the right buttons.
Oh yeah, and indeed that's what he's done, and I think he will continue to do. But of course, he has reckoned without the new kid on the block.
Yeah.
Andrew Langan Newton, who. The Green Party candidate is a lawyer. He's very personable.
Yeah.
He's, I gather, become something of a sort of housewife's favourite on the doorstep.
Yeah. And we've got this green vote, haven't we?
Yeah, and there's this green vote, but he's
Yeah.
also getting votes out in the constituents because last time there was a more environmentally sort of focused candidate called James Hampton, Scampy Hampton, who did quite well. But I think he's been able to tap into his votes and also into the greater awareness of climate emergency and green issues, and also tap into votes that really haven't come out to vote before, that have just seen things.
Go green, isn't it?
Nothing ever's going to change.
Yeah.
So, I think he's got a. Well, it's not really. I think no, sorry, he's the second place.
Yeah. Anyone out there is thinking, I'd like a grant for me solar panel, my electric car. I'd like some assistance with my home in making it more economical and friendly. They're going to go for the green, aren't they? Every time.
Well, yes, they're certainly not going to go for the current policies, which are, you can have £6,000 if you match the £6,000 or something like that. So they've pitched it just right for it to look generous, but the conditions are so stringent that nobody will take it up. So
that completes the batting order. Let's just see.
Yes.
Who's your pitch for the number one spot then?
Right. Well, it's three bolts, isn't it? Alf Cannon, Chris Thomas, and Jane Paul Wilson. You might get the odd other person who might consider throwing their hat in the ring, like Ashford, but I don't think Ashford's got the votes. Now, if you're looking at an establishment keys in terms of the people who are elected, then of course Cannon would probably get in. But it isn't going to be that simple this time, because the way the vote's going to fall, although progressives aren't going to have an absolute majority, they could do possibly, but I don't think that's going to happen.
I think if your predictions are correct, then Alf Cannon isn't going to be ringside.
No. Well, he did.
He won't be. It'll be.
But he just won't get the votes.
No.
Then you've got Chris Thomas. Chris Thomas, very, very able, understands everything. A technocrat and collegiate leader, and also someone with an oven-ready program for government, ready to go. But there is a head of steam for the idea of it's about time we had a woman. And fortuitously enough, there is the kind of woman who could be
perfect
Chief Minister.
Yeah.
And that's Jane Paul Wilson.
Well, there we have it. I'm not going to disagree with you.
So I would say if there were sufficient, certainly I think the progressives will have a significant enough vote to stop anyone else becoming Chief Minister. They won't be able to get past 13. So they will determine who will be Chief Minister. So unless there is another compromise candidate that might, and I don't think that, I think the popular idea of having Jane Paul Wilson is it's got legs and it's running very fast.
Blimey. Well, there we have it. It's midnight.
Lord, have we been talking that long?
We are, yes. We have, and thank you everyone for sticking with us. And we've got a few comments in the box, but please use your vote wisely tomorrow. Bonzo?
Absolutely. Use your vote wisely. But I think the most important thing is go and vote.
Exactly.
Because if enough of you vote, your vote actually will make a difference. The reason that things don't change is that people don't vote. Simple as that.
You heard it. Okay, we'll have a catch up, but thank you very much, Bonzo, as ever.
Yep.
Expert commentary. I'll absolutely love it.
See you all on the other side, folks.
Go on, give us a bit of John Peel, please.
Tonight you've been hearing about Jane Paul Wilson, Ged Power, and Geff the Mongoose, who will be appearing tomorrow in session. Good night and good riddance.